The semi-finals were a strange roller coaster of exactly what you expected and what you didn't expect to happen. The way it was supposed to play out was relatively simple and straightforward. It should have been a comfortable win for All Blacks and it should have been a comfortable win for South Africa. But England had different plans. Let's have a look at the first semi-final first. In recent years, Argentina showed that they can beat the All Blacks and they actually beat them at home. So, yeah, it is something that is possible. But they had a bad start to the World Cup and they losing to England and they didn't quite recover. They were able to scrap and get a couple of results and they fought their way all the way through to the semi-finals for which they should be commended. But you could see that they just really weren't there completely. The semi-finals, sadly, the real All Blacks pitched up. Some more inconsistent refereeing didn't help the cause of the Argentinians, and honestly, that is something that needs to be looked at to ensure that there isn't that much frustration for players and the general public who just watch the games. Regardless of that, there was only going to be one winner in this game based on the way that the All Blacks played. And as Aaron Smith said, there were a couple of scores that needed to be settled. First, they needed to get past Ireland. There was a bit of a score to settle with them based on the series loss that they had last year in New Zealand. Then getting past the semi-final where in the 2019 World Cup they had were knocked out by the England team. So they got past that and they got into the final. So first two parts of the quest for redemption is done. It was also a historic day with the first thing being that Sam Whitelaw got to, I think it's now 152 caps for the All Blacks, which is absolutely amazing. Will Jordan also equaled the scoring record of Jonah Lomo and Sevilla and Brian Abana by getting to 8 tries. Now we can see with the final looming if he can get past that mark, which would be an exceptional achievement. Either way, the All Blacks made sure that we have a very mouth-watering final setup. In the other semi-final, I think there was only the England players, Steve Borthwick, and a few of their family members and some diehard fans who believed that they would even come close in this game. England were just amazing in how they completely shut down South Africa in all facets of the game. It's been a while since South Africa was so starved for success in a lot of these smaller battles. They were able to, for the first 60 minutes, nullify the lineouts, the scrums, the rucks, the kicking game of the South Africans, and any kind of move that they wanted to do with the backline. To be very honest, South Africa looked a little hopeless at times. The only thing that South Africa was getting right in those first 60 minutes was making sure that they kept England from actually scoring a try. It was really a lackluster performance, and any South African had heart palpitations. Believe me, I was one of those. Honestly, the England team and Steve Borthwick as coach, they deserve all the credit that goes their way. They were absolutely amazing in how they planned for this game and how they executed on that plan on game day. As a coach, I know that things don't always go according to plan when you based on what you've planned, but this was amazing, and that the whole team was bought into that, and the way that they executed it, spectacular. Honestly, spectacular. With the introduction of Andre Pollard after 30 minutes, it started helping a little bit, but there was still quite a bit needed. And only when the bomb squad started being introduced in bits and pieces did things slowly start to shift. There was a shift in energy, there was a shift in intensity, and the South Africans actually started winning some of their own facets that they wanted to. So they were getting better at drag time. Argentinian Snyman made a massive change in the lineouts, and they started to win the lineouts. And then at scrum time, the real difference was when Vincent Koch and Oxenchair came on. Most people give all the credit to Oxenchair, and I'm not going to take any of that away, but I think it is a bit of an insult to Vincent Koch not making sure that both of those props share the praise there. They were spectacular, and when they went up against the reserves from the English side, they were by far the most dominant front rowers on there, and that was a thing of beauty to watch for an ex-forward as well. On the back of those scrums and the penalties that it produced, South Africa was able to slowly start rebuilding in those last 20 minutes. The Argentinian Snyman try in the 69th minute brought a sense of belief to the South Africans, just thinking, hey, maybe we can sneak this one again for the second weekend in a row. With 2.5 minutes left, Andre Pollard stepped up after one of those scrum penalties and he slotted a 49-meter kick. As cool as ever. I would have died if I had to try and attempt that, just because I can't kick, but also that amount of pressure. I think that is something else, honestly. South Africa have won that game based on the way that England played and based on the way that they shut down South Africa. For the most part, I would say no. And most other people would also agree with me. It would be difficult not to. Despite the overall underpar performance compared to the previous week where the South Africans were actually really good against France, South Africa still managed to find a way. And despite the very narrow margin, I think that is the one thing that would make the All Blacks a little weary of this final, is seeing that the South Africans, despite whether they play a good game or a bad game, they will find a way. And that is something that just makes this whole final a lot more exciting. I'll cover the final in a bit more detail later in the week. I've got a few things planned for that in terms of the video. But so one thing I must just mention, and as much as it pains me to say, in many regards, I'm not a fan of Owen Farrell. But I must say the way that he conducted himself after the game really showed a touch of class. He did the diplomatic thing. He commended South Africa for coming back and for the way that they played. And you could see the pain on his face. He was so disappointed in the outcome, and I can understand that. He was absolutely crushed. He didn't use that as a platform to vent or say anything. He was just talking about how proud he was of his team, of his coaching staff, of his country, and for that, I can only give him credit. Any player who talks like that about the game and talks like that about their pride for their country and the way that they play, I've got respect for a person like that. Whichever way you look at it, the England that played in this World Cup and how they built up and how they played this semi-final in particular, I'm just starting to think the Six Nations in 2024 is going to be a whole different beast. England isn't going to just be isn't just going to be there to make up the numbers. They're going to be in contention to actually threaten the other teams in a big way.